Hey everybody, Texas Stroke Air Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMopars.com. It's Sunday night, it's getting cold here in the shop. I'm going to try to crank this out. There's lots of stories, lots of back talk on this I could enter into. We might cover some of it, but we're going to get started by setting the box down. Now, this is not from KC Tool. In fact, it's not even German tools that reside inside. It's not parts for an old Chrysler. It's not something crazy promotional-wise. It's not me pushing merchandise on people. If you can tell from the tape, which some of you might, depending on how much you bring in from Japan in particular, that is, of course, a Japanese-oriented tape. I don't know what it is. The stuff that I get in from Japan, if it's direct, it's not like through a vendor, or they don't have it in stock and they ship it direct to me. This is primarily like Mitutoyo, sort of, high-end precision measuring stuff I get at work. I don't know who makes this tape. I wish there was like a compatible tape, or it was stocked in the US. If it is, I've not found it. That stuff is awesome. Some of it leaves a residue. Most of it is easy pull, but it's like fiber reinforced duct tape type of a thing. With clean release. I don't know. I don't want to get too dorky on you, but the tape is awesome, and I seem to see it a lot on stuff that comes in from Japan. Nonetheless, what in the world have I done bringing in Japanese tools? Well, long ago, in the quest to find the world's best screwdriver, I brought this guy in, and it is from Vesssel. This is a really nice screwdriver. No, I've never made a video on it. I actually brought in 2 of their screwdrivers. There's a third that I really want. It's a little bit ridiculous of a price. I've tried and tried and tried to find it on sale. I've not been able to. In the background, I've been using the 2 that I have, and they are, spoiler alert, pretty freaking good. So, the reason I bring that up is when I was looking for Vesssel, I knew of them from some friends that were into imports. Like the old JIS screws, right, on really old Japanese vehicles and motorcycles. And so I was like, what's that company that makes those JIS? Because it was this old guy, and then some younger friends have gotten them, sort of like nostalgia, collectible, and somewhat functional type of a deal. I'm talking like 70s, right? If you're like getting little old Kawasaki's and stuff. And eventually I typed in JIS Vesssel and was like, yes, that was it. It was Vesssel. And so, long story short, I was looking for Vesssel screwdrivers at good prices. Of course, when I'm doing that, as I'm going through Google translating pages, I wound up on Kyoto Tool Company. Kyoto Tool Company, sort of like the parent, guardian, if you will, of Nepros. Nepros would be their fancy, professional, state-of-the-art, high-end, the Lexus to Toyota, the Chrysler to Dodge, whatever you want to call it. It would sort of be like if you're going from Stanley to Proto to Mac type of a thing. It's that sort of a, family tree. And Nepros had some really cool looking screwdrivers. Now the problem I had is they were super expensive screwdrivers. I'm talking like 20 plus a piece, which is kind of crazy. And I am someone that has spent a lot of money on screwdrivers, which is primarily out of curiosity to find the best. And $20 though, I can't really swallow that pill. We might eventually. And of course, who else falls into that category? Snap-on. Snap-on falls into that category. So I kind of avoided it. When, of course, I got there, I went out, I was like, let's see if anybody has reviewed Nepros screwdrivers. I just kind of want to know out of curiosity. Couldn't really find much. What I found a ton of was their Ratchets. People love them. Super high-end precision. Of course, they're made in Japan. Which, like I said, my experience with Japanese stuff would be primarily Mitutoyo, precision instruments I bring in for work. Nothing bad I can say about that company. Fantastic products. They do their job. They last. They perform very well. They come packaged nicely. So on and so forth. But the Ratchets were interesting to me. And of course, that's something I've kind of wanted to upgrade for a long time. I'd held off. And what I ultimately do, as with everything, is I come back when there's something I want and I tell myself it's too expensive, I wait for a sale. I don't know jack about Nepros or Kyoto Tool, like if they have semi-annual sales, no sales, if Nepros is just so premium, there's never a price cut. I know none of that. So what do I have to do as a consumer? Check back often. And I do that, and I've yet to find a sale. But a while back, I think this was, I don't know, maybe around Halloween, Black Friday, somewhere in that time frame of fall, I got in and I clicked on the new products. And I saw this really freaking cool Ratchet. Now, the thing about it is it was blue. And blue is one of my favorite colors, and it was so unique looking. It was like, man, that is awesome. I've never seen anything like it. And of course, I click it, and it's, like over $100, and I'm like, good Lord, no, not doing it. And needless to say, every time I've gone back, which I try to check weekly, again, when I know nothing of the, regional sales, so on and so forth, that's just good practice, because every once in a while you might just innocently click and everything's 50% off, all right? So that's what I'd been doing, and I had a birthday recently, and I've always had this Ratchet on my mind, and I finally decided to just pull the trigger sort of as a birthday present to myself. So that is the story of why this box is here, and the catch is, that's not all I got. Now, I would have actually purchased more. The problem is the shipping was kind of high. The way they do it, it's one of those sites where you come in and they hit you with the value, and the value dictates the shipping price. It's not even weight based, it's just strictly off of the price that you pay. So I went ahead and I picked out things to fill up all that I could up until I would cross over to the next threshold of freight, just to get a feel for it. If we like it, we may go back for more. I will probably still stagger things based on shipping, but let's go ahead and take a look at what we got now. I know what you're thinking. I couldn't really pass this up. I know I just said, man, those 20 plus buck screwdrivers are ridiculous. Who would buy them? I did, and it was primarily because I was already in the threshold. The Ratchet was at a price point where I had basically $50 to spend, and I would still be in that same $19.99 for the freight. So this is their part number, ND3P2, and what that says is wood grip screwdriver. Of course, we got the Nepros logo there, mirror, 5GQ KTC, again, that's Kyoto Tool Company. Very unique packaging. Now, there's no fold up for the tang. I guess there actually is. I take that back. I'm not going to break it free. But right there, if this was a retail store display, which I assume it would be, it would hang just like that. It looks really, really nice. Like to the point, that it's almost too nice to use type of a thing. But don't worry, I'm going to use it. Let's see how it stacks up. So right there, of course, made in Japan. The way this is held in place are just two little plastic tabs, which you can kind of see now. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy, free him from his package. There it is. I have yet to experience how it feels in hand. I'm going to kind of wait on that. Spin it around. Now, obviously, this is really, really fancy. This is almost like something you would give the guy that's super into Japanese tools, or, a retired mechanical engineer. So it looks like something that would be on their desk as like a letter opener, right? Just something really fancy. But what I'm concerned about is the ergonomics, really, how it looks, the ergonomics, and most importantly, the tip. Now, you will note there's a couple of features here you probably already caught. We do have the nut bolster here, so if we ever wanted to apply torque, we could. And since it is a wood-handled screwdriver, this is not just for decoration. There's the camera. This is a striking cap as well. So it's sort of the ultimate. Now, I could have come in and gotten the plasticky rubber grip one, which I would really, really like to do. But I felt like this would be more interesting, and that's kind of why I pulled the trigger. Just the finish on that wood is pretty crazy. They didn't just coat it. It's kind of like been stained and polished. I don't know how much clear must be on that to reflect in that manner. That's not metallic. I mean, this is a legit wood handle. Now, I mean, there's a mirror finish, and then this is the wood-handled finish, which is just absurd. It feels really good in hand. I can tell you that right now. Wood handles, again, that sounds really stupid. It sounds really archaic and really old with all the technological advances and new materials we've had. There is a reason I always push these. There is a reason people watch the videos and talk about how much they love the Philo wood-handled screwdrivers. Buy a set. Bring one in. If you're appalled by this, or you're like, man, this one looks so much better, if you got $20, bring one in for yourself. Any wood-handled tool just feels good in hand, and over time they get better. So, here is this one, and good grief, it is a nice piece. I mean, that shaft, the nut bolster, the cap kind of joining it to the wood, it's all got the same mirror finish as the striking cap. Now, I do plan to use this. I don't know that I will use the striking cap feature on it, because that would ruin the beautiful finish. Now, you can use this. Wear and tear on the tip doesn't bother me. The nut bolster wouldn't bother me, but that's just nice, man. That's like banging a brand new piece of glass or something. It just feels wrong. The business in though, and what I care the most about is the tip. Let's go ahead and try to bring that in closer for you. It sounds like it's raining outside. It's kind of concerning. It was not in the forecast. But the tip looks really nice. It's pretty blunt up top, which means it should fit the screws very nice. Just because I can, let me try and bring in this Vesssel tip so we can do a direct comparison between the two. So the shiny shaft is of course going to be our Nepros, and this is the Vesssel. The Vesssel does have the ribbing on it, sort of like the anti-cam out, which is so fine you can't really even see it that good. But they have a similar style tip, so based on how well I like the Vesssel and how it grabs the fasteners, I think this will do the same thing. While this is zoomed in, look at the wood grain, man. Like, this is a dark stain, and it's glorious to look at. It really is. Like, that's insanity, man. Like, I've gotten a lot of fancy high-end chrome polish stuff in, not necessarily because I like it, but that's just what the companies finish out in. This is right up there with the absolute best of them. So the price on this guy, it was $23.90, which again, that's a hard pill to swallow. But this would be a type of thing, if you're a curious mindset like myself, you might bring it in. Similarly, if you've got friends that are, into imports or old motorcycles, that sort of a thing, that's kind of a gift that you could give. Right here, as I mentioned, the price point of the Ratchet left me around $50, give or take. We spent $23.90, so basically $24 on that guy. Next thing I could do, I, again, didn't want to bring in the other screwdrivers, so for $17.90, I brought in this guy. Now, again, you got the Nepros logo, 5QG. Part number on this, I believe, is NBE38. They call it 9.5 square. What does this say? They just refer to it as the spinner handle, and that's exactly what it is. So, what I'm going to do with this, I will, of course, use it in conjunction with the Ratchet we purchased, but I'll also use it with other Ratchets I have, and I'll kind of demonstrate it here with a Craftsman. But again, the finish on that is absurd. Like, just really, really well done. Now, right there, basically the way this works, this is your drive side, right? So picture your Ratchet. It's going to come down. It's got a nice flush surface. It's sort of got a bevel as it leads in. And then you've just got a replica 3/8 drive, so we can plug a socket onto it. And the way it's going to work is you can then utilize this to turn. It's almost like we've created a bit ratchet. So if I take my little 3/8 Craftsman here, we'll make sure it fits very nicely. And essentially what I can do is, if I'm in a tight space, and let's say that I have limited travel with my Ratchet, so we're coming in, and you can note that with this one it's got a lot of slop, right? But the problem is, if let's say we've got two immovable objects here and we just have a tight window like that, I can actually come in and, using this kind of rubber knurled piece, I can turn it by hand. Now obviously if you're trying to break something free, it's not a great idea, but in terms of tightening something down, if it's not something that has to be torqued, you can utilize this and kind of convert a standard Ratchet into a really nice tight quarters option. So there that is. Again, it was about 18 bucks. It's actually kind of hard to find good quality spinners. I've gotten kind of like the thumb wheel ratchets before, and they just suck. So this, you're utilizing the Ratchet that you have, but you're, making better use of it, if you will. Nonetheless, the real star of the show is right here, and of course those were kind of standard, like retail packaging you would expect to find if you walked in the store. This is the black box. This is the fancy stuff. This is going to be their number NBR 390 JB. Spin it around, nothing on that side. On the bottom here, and we've got the part number, made in Japan, so on and so forth. People rave about this. Again, when I was looking for the videos on wood-handled and plastic screwdrivers that Nepros has, I came across tons and tons of Ratchet videos, particularly like the quarter drive flex head stubby. And everyone just raved about. They'd never seen anything like this box. This box to me is just like the stuff I bring in from Mitutoyo. You know, they've sort of got like their fancy case, which is usually going to be like hard plastic, and then they've got like orange, you know, kind of wrapper sleeve, just like this. So it's not totally different to me because I guess I'm used to it in that regard. But what is on the inside, I don't know that the camera can do justice. I'm going to open it up. There it is. I'd like you to meet my new 3/8 ratchet. Even the lid had foam, which is a nice touch. I'm going to keep it sturdy in shipment. I'm not sure that you can tell, but that is their special limited edition finish. Now, I've seen it called blue iron plating, and I've seen it called blue ion plating. I honestly don't know which one is correct because I believe I've been on their official sites, and I've seen it as blue iron, and I've also seen it as blue ion. So, regardless, it's kind of just a high-end finish they've applied, and it's taken what would be a mirror finish ratchet, which would be their standard deal that would look something like that, and has put that blue plating on it. This is not something for everyone. It's not something, some of you will hate it, some of you will think it looks stupid, rest of you will be indifferent, and then some of you will be like me and think that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. And I fall into that camp again. Now, if your favorite color is yellow or orange or red, obviously, you know, you're like, well, I don't really know about that. If it was red, I'd definitely pull the trigger. Apparently, they do this from time to time. They offer, you know, special limited edition colors and options. It's not limited to the ratchet. They come in. I've not seen it in their half-inch line, but 3/8 and quarter in particularly they do. There's some sockets. They have some like half moon sets. You can get a whole tool set for like $700. But this was pretty expensive. I've never bought a ratchet anywhere near this price point. This is $104.90, so basically $105. And it took up the vast majority of the freight allowance I had for the $19.99, or what was it exactly? $19.90. Everything seems to end in 90s that I buy from them. But this is $104, and then again, I was already paying the $19 in freight. So these are the two items I added on that kept me under the next threshold, where I think I would have stepped up to like $29.99 in freight, something like that. But this thing is legit. I opened it up at work, I pulled it out. You can see the foam on this side has the slots cut out for the square drive, and we've just got that for the rest. I don't know that I'll actually keep it in the box because I guess unlike a lot of people that would purchase this, I plan to use this. This is not something that I bought because it looks cool. This is something that I bought because it looks cool and I want to use it. This is going to be what becomes my everyday use ratchet. Now, if I'm doing like transmission work and I'm about to have fluid dump on me, probably not going to use this one, but anything else, oh yes, this will be my bread and butter ratchet. So 3/8 is what I use the most frequently, and this one is going to assume the #1 position on the depth chart. So if it's really good, that's awesome. If it sucks and it breaks, I'm going to be pretty sad. The mechanism on this one is really quiet. And that's also, I mean, that's reflecting. I've got all those signs on the wall. You can see the insulation. If I bring it down, you can see the camera. It's a crazy, super high quality finish on this thing. Like, the camera's not doing it justice. In the camera, this is almost like a anodized violet. It's not like plum crazy, but if you made a couple shades lighter than plum crazy, and then anodized it, that's what it looks like in the camera. In person, it has more of like that's kind of like a navy blue crossed with a Mopar blue, depending on where the light hits it. And it looks awesome, that's what I can tell you. Now, the switch lever right here, it's got a nice knurled finish on it, which is cool. Not knurled, I shouldn't say, but there's like a texture to that, which is good because your thumb will kind of rest naturally. It's a very positive feel on the selector switch. Now, something else I like, and again, I am someone accustomed to the push-button release, quick release style ratchet, just because that's what I grew up with. This one, it's almost, it might just be a little shy of total flush. So the reason that's important is obviously if this was super sensitive, you know, and it was raised, you'd have issues. If it was raised and not sensitive, you just kind of bump into it. This is just a little bit below the surface. And man, that thing looks really nice. But right there would be our release. Here's the handle. Kind of akin to the rubber that you see on the spinner wheel. We've got some right there, I guess, just to kind of keep you a positive feel in your hand. And like, I think you can hear that. Now, people always make a big deal about, you know, oh, listen to it, listen to the teeth. My big thing is actually in the swing arc. And what I mean by that, it's sort of like with our ratcheting wrenches we brought in recently. With my old Craftsman, if I'm trying to tighten something down, I'm going up, and then we get right here, and the Nepros is engaged. It's got a 4-degree swing arc, which is really, really good for a ratchet. 5 degrees is really good for a ratchet, in all honesty. I'm not sure that there's much that would be better than 4 degrees of a swing arc. That's in part, this is a 90-tooth design. It's the most quiet ratchet I have ever heard. But what I want to emphasize again is if we come up here to our hard spot, an immovable object, a motor mount, whatever it might be, brake booster, this is already engaged. I've come up and it's ready to go. We're ready to apply the workload to the fastener. Now, if I come in and grab my Craftsman, which this is the only other 3/8 ratchet I have, I checked my granddad's toolbox, and I thought there was one in there. There was not. He had a 1/2-inch drive, a really old one. But this is it for me, man, this little 3/8 Craftsman. So with it, I mean, you can, like, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 6 rotations. You could hear the gear each time, and I've already traveled that far. And then the problem is when you go up with it, there's a lot of play before I'm ready to get to the fastener. I'm going to try to keep it perfectly still for you. There's our click, and then I have to come to that point. And the problem is, if you're in a tight spot, it's a huge hindrance. It takes a lot more time. If you come in and you don't have a tight spot, it's just going to be that much longer that you have to work, because again, most people aren't going to go full 360. If you were, you'd be using a nut driver, swivel head, something like that. But this is all I can compare it to for you. And there's actually good news that comes with that, because I feel like the vast majority of you are going to have either A, owned a Craftsman raised panel ratchet like this, or B, you currently still have one and still use it regularly. So overall length is very, very similar. The weight, this Nepros unit is quite a bit heavier than the Craftsman. Now the Nepros unit right there, you can kind of see it will be serviceable. The Craftsman, of course, is too. This one would be easier to take apart, kind of like your high-end tool truck brand ratchets. Side profile, it's sort of hard to compare because again, this is flat and this is truly rounded. And if we get them side by side there, which is kind of hard to do, I think the neck, the Craftsman's going to be thinner. The handle, the Craftsman is definitely thinner, even with these raised handles. Now the handle, you're typically not concerned about clearance, or you wouldn't be using a ratchet this long to begin with. The head, though, that's what will be the most interesting. I think the Nepros head is actually just a little bit thinner. And then, of course, up top, this is kind of like the Stavilla I brought in recently, that quick release button. I do like that, and I think it's just because I'm used to it, but this is way more trick, and it actually feels better when you press on it. This one has a lot of resistance. This one's just kind of fluid. You can tell there's resistance for the spring mechanism, but it just feels good. There's like a positive articulation there. Now what I want to do, since many of you are familiar with the Craftsman, I'm going to come in. The sockets came with the same set. That's pretty good play on the drive end, right? And this is honestly, I mean, this was part of the same set. And it's a 5/8 12 point. We're going to come in now, and of course, most of us aren't going to come in and spend a ton of money on sockets. So the question is, will this sweet, brand new, expensive ratchet have a good relationship with our existing sockets? I'd say there might be less play. It's got a lot of play too, but I don't think it's as bad as the Craftsman. So listen to that though. And if you pay attention when I stop, and then when this wants to spin the socket, that's what the 4-degree swing arc is all about. So we'll drop that off. Let me go ahead and put the Craftsman on so you can kind of experience it. Yeah, I mean, if you're like me and this is all you've got in terms of your 3/8 ratchet, which if you're automotive, this is probably going to be the one that you use the most outside of, heavy duty brake, suspension, so on and so forth, or if you're strictly into like 4-wheel drive stuff. For everyone else, if it's like performance automotive stuff, this is your most used ratchet right here, the 3/8 one. And that is a definitive upgrade. And couple the fact that, I mean, pretty much any other high-end brand is around the same price point, and I got one that's super unique and in my favorite color with this ridiculously amazing plating or coating on it, I'm a happy camper. Now right here will come in just for the sake of doing it. I've got the short 6-point socket too. There's so much play on that. Granted, I mean, you get used to this stuff because it's all you have, but I'm curious to see. I think that's a little tighter as well. So in terms of, like, oh man, I'd love to pick up one of those ratchets. I don't really like that blue color, but man, that chrome finish would be sweet. I'm going to go order one of those, but man, I bet it doesn't work with my old American sockets. Nope. 3/8 square drive should be compatible across the board. In super rare occurrences, certain ratchets don't like certain sockets. I'm not really sure why, because they should all be done to the same standards. But that will be a moot point here. And again, this is the old same tool set as that ratchet. I'm up and running just fine. Now, for the sake of doing it, there's the sort of, you can't really even see the machined finish inside. You'll never be able to. It's too shiny on the top. Now, this is something, I don't believe they make this in the blue iron coating. I don't really care. That silver and blue combo, that's a really nice look at the chrome and the blue iron. Check this out though. Instant grab. There's some play, but it's nothing like it was with the Craftsman accessories. Now, the reason that I brought in these two sockets, this is going to be what most of us have. You got shallow and you got deep. There's certain times that you want to, I almost always use a deep socket. Sometimes you can't, and that's because of a limitation in clearance, right? So you have to go to your shallow. The shallow, depending on how tight something is, the confines, the angle you're able to come in and approach it at, how many extensions you might have to use, you run into a situation where a lot of times this will slip off the nut. It'll come off the bolt head, right? And that's where you kind of like this, the deep socket, because you can sort of apply more pressure to it. Something Nepros makes that I'm very interested in is sort of like a mid-tier socket set. So it's not going to be shallow, it's not going to be deep, it's going to be something like this. And that could be the happy medium that many of those jobs would actually be able to progress with without you having to resort to going full-on stubby, or getting the stubby and kind of cheating it out with like a couple of adapters or something to get that extra height that you want. I can't think of anything offhand. It seems like somewhere around the motor mounts is the last time I had to do that. But if you've been in that situation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Nepros is a company that actually makes the medium-sized socket. And that's something I would love to bring in. Again, I kind of stopped purchasing here because A, it was getting expensive, and B, I didn't want to jump up another threshold point in the shipping game, particularly since I had zero first-hand experience with these brands and the quality and finish of them and whatnot. I figured I would be impressed. I definitely am impressed, and that is something that I would love to add. I think they have 1/4 and 3/8 options in this same finish. That I might have a hard time justifying. With the Ratchet, it's sort of your bread and butter. You're going to use it all the time. You're going to grab this out of your box. You're going to be happy. It's definitely, no one's going to confuse this with their own, right? And if you have buddies over and, you're working on their cars or helping you out with something, they go to grab your Ratchet, they're going to be like, whoa, what is that? And I don't know. Now, I don't have anything fancy to compare this to. I don't have any snap-on stuff. I don't have any super expensive ratchets. I've got some, the most expensive drive tools I have would be torque wrenches, and those are both 1/2-inch drive. The thing that I most wanted to bring in was actually a 3/8 breaker bar, and what I liked about it, it was not this special plating or anything, but it wasn't super long, but it was a decent length, and it had a leather wrapped handle. And of course, with a breaker bar, that's when you appreciate the comfort grip stuff, right? And that one is on my short list. They're sort of mid-level socket sets would be nice. But this thing right here is just really, really well done. I'm going to bring it in for you. You can kind of see there. And what does that say? We've got Nepros, so we've got the logo. Innovative 90 gear KTC Japan. So I think that's actually their 90. They've got some pretty cool t-shirts. I just maxed out my recording time, but if you're a super fan of this Ratchet, you can actually buy t-shirts that have the engineering kind of schematic behind it. So keep that in mind. But I've got to say, I'm happy with this now. I need to use it. I need to see how well it performs, if it's going to break, quickly. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think this is kind of one of those like lifetime type of a tools. I mean, let's be honest, I've had this one since I was, early teenager, and it's still with me and functioning. So I do take care of my stuff as best I can. I clean it from time to time. And this one right here, it is going to become my go-to Ratchet, and I'm going to see how she holds up. The saddest thing about it is, since it is limited edition, if I ever were to break this, if it failed, if I couldn't get parts for it, it would be a situation where maybe they would swap it out for their other limited edition at the time, but I don't know if it would be this cool, at least not to me. So I might wind up with a standard one, but this is definitely in the running. So I brought in this 1/4-inch Stavilla one just here recently. I plan to use it, kind of see how they stack up. So I'll be doing sort of a behind-the-scenes, Ratchet comparison. It will be nowhere near as comprehensive as our screwdriver research, just for the simple fact this stuff is way more expensive. This was $104, which you're getting in tool truck territory there. But I feel like this really is a quality tool. The packaging, again, is over the top and amazing. But what's most important to me is what is in my hand right now, and it is pretty freaking sweet. So it's pretty much standard length, at least if you're familiar with the old-style Craftsman ratchets. Super, super quiet. I mean, even this Stavilla one. Let's go ahead and listen to it while we can. Like, it feels really good. There's a low swing arc on it, but this one is, I mean, it's almost inaudible, right? Again, I don't know why people always do that. I guess it's just so you can hear the gears, like the Craftsman compared to this. Infinitely better, right? You can hear it. This you don't really hear, but again, it's that 4-degree swing arc that's going to be the big selling point. That said, I am curious, what are your thoughts on Nepros tools? Have you used them? Is it something that you have, like myself, been watching for quite some time, waiting for a reason to pull the trigger? If you have used these, if you have experience with them, if you know someone that uses them and swears by them, what is their performance? Are they getting good life out of them? If they've had something fail, are they able to source parts? Are they able to get the warranty honored? That was another reason to go direct in the event that something did happen. I felt I'd have a better course of action saying, hey, pull this up. I bought it, January, February 2019. Here's the order number, blah, blah, blah. I just feel like you have a better relationship with the company. I'm not going through multiple middlemen or something crazy like that. So that said, I'm kind of losing my voice here. Been talking too much. Need to get to work apparently. But let me know, do you like this Ratchet? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Is it the coolest thing you've ever seen? Would you buy one at this price point? Would you buy one if it was slightly cheaper? Would you never buy one because you hate the way that it looks? I'm really curious to kind of see what everyone's reaction is to it. Now, for me personally, and if you're like myself and you like blue, I don't think you could complain. But for people who say don't have blue as a favorite color, I want to know, is this something that you admire and appreciate? Or is it something that you just can't believe someone actually produced? I'm really interested in what people's thoughts are kind of collectively across the board. But like I said, this is the new bread and butter for me. This guy right here, believe it or not, I will use it. I will put it in the shootout. We will see how it holds up once we've done some screws with it. I have zero intention to ever use the striking cap end of it because it's way too nice to do that. But the screwdriver itself will be used. The tip will show some wear and tear over time, I'm sure. And the handle, it will probably not be near as pretty by the time we're done with it, but this thing feels really freaking sweet. And this is just a cool tool that it's actually kind of hard to find quality versions of, at least in everything I've brought in thus far. So with that said, I'm going to quit rambling. If your fear was, man, Japanese socket, I don't know how it's going to play with mine. It all should be standardized. It all should conform. Most of you are probably like me, got a whole buttload of cheap sockets, Craftsman, Husky, Cobalt. They fit fine. So, with that said, let me know your thoughts on all this. I will catch you back here for the next video from the shop. And until then, make sure you're following on Twitter, like me on Facebook. You can also, of course, follow along on Instagram. And I will catch you back here for the next video.